Most people buy a fishing boat, expecting some regret down the line. A maintenance bill they didn't see coming. A resale number that stings, a nagging feeling they should have bought something else. But a small handful of boats have earned something almost nobody expects. Owners who say, without hesitation, they'd buy the exact same boat again. Today we're counting down 6 of them. And the boat sitting at number 1 has built a reputation so strong that entire families keep theirs for decades, long after most people would have traded up. Let's get into it. Sitting at number 6, imagine walking onto a boat that costs thousands less than the recognized names on the dock, and discovering it handles chop just as confidently as boats twice the price. That's the exact reaction a lot of first-time buyers have the first time they take a sea hunt out in rough water. This brand built its following on practicality rather than prestige. The deep V-hull handles chop with a confidence that punches well above what buyers typically expect at this price point. And manufacturing consistency has genuinely tightened with each passing model year. Many longtime owners describe going 20 years without a single major structural surprise, which is a remarkable claim for a name that still doesn't carry the recognition of the bigger offshore builders. Here's what surprised even experienced anglers who switched over from pricier brands. Fuel efficiency, thanks to a well-matched single outboard setup, keeps ownership costs low across the board, from maintenance to insurance to fuel. And resale value, once considered a weak point for lesser-known names, has strengthened noticeably as word of mouth has spread. But there's a catch worth knowing up front. Brand recognition still lags behind the established offshore names, so used listings can sometimes sit a little longer before finding the right buyer. Offshore capability is also limited compared to boats purpose-built for genuinely rough blue water. And higher-end electronics packages aren't as widely available as they are on premium builders. Before buying used, always ask for engine maintenance records first. A documented service history tells you more about how a boat was actually treated than a fresh coat of wax ever will. Sea Hunt proves that value and durability aren't mutually exclusive. But the next boat solves a completely different problem. The fear every rough water angler has of watching their hull slowly fall apart from the inside out. Ask anyone at a marina which boat simply refuses to break down, and Parker's name comes up again and again. At number 5, that reputation isn't an accident. It's the direct result of a manufacturer that never chased trends. While competitors redesigned their lineups every few seasons, hoping to catch attention, Parker kept refining the same fundamentals, decade after decade. Solid fiberglass layups below the waterline add weight and cost, but they remove the single biggest cause of catastrophic hull failure in older boats: rotted coring. Experienced captains often mention running the same engine for 15 or 20 years, engines that were eventually swapped out because an owner wanted more power, not because anything failed. Now here's where things get interesting. That firm, predictable ride some buyers initially find stiff is actually the same trait serious anglers come to depend on. A boat that behaves exactly the same way every single time, regardless of conditions, builds a kind of trust that flashier, softer riding boats rarely earn. Ownership costs run about average for the segment, and depreciation has stayed gentle thanks to strong, steady demand on the used market. Resale value holds up well because informed buyers specifically seek this brand out, knowing exactly what they're getting before they even step aboard. Of course, no boat is without trade-offs. The ride leans firm rather than plush, and buyers coming from softer boats sometimes need a season to adjust. Fuel economy, while solid, doesn't quite match lighter competitors. And the function-first design philosophy means these boats don't always turn heads the way flashier rivals do. Before buying used, focus less on how shiny the boat looks and more on compression testing the engine and checking the transom for softness. A rough-looking hull often has nothing to do with what's happening mechanically underneath. Parker earns its place through pure structural stubbornness. But the next boat takes a completely different path to owner loyalty, one built around comfort as much as capability. Some boats get sold. This one tends to get inherited. At number 4, Grady White has built the kind of reputation where families hang on to the same hull for well over a decade, then pass it down instead of trading it in. This builder has been refining its construction since the mid-1950s, one of the longest continuous track records in the entire industry. That decades-long history shows up in a solid fiberglass hull paired with a deck and interior finish that feels noticeably more upscale than most offshore competitors. Marine surveyors frequently note that structural strength holds up remarkably well even after years of serious offshore use. A direct benefit of that long refinement process. Here's the detail that explains the loyalty. Ride quality strikes a rare balance, comfortable enough for a lazy weekend cruise, confident enough for genuinely rough water when conditions turn. That versatility means the boat gets used constantly, not just on dedicated fishing days, and boats that get used tend to get loved. Resale value stays consistently among the best in the industry, meaning owners recover a significant share of what they originally paid whenever it finally comes time to sell. Demand on the used market remains strong year after year, and for many owners, that long-term financial upside quietly outweighs the higher price paid at purchase. But there's one trade-off worth being honest about. The purchase price sits well above budget offshore boats. Replacement parts can carry a premium tied to the brand name, and larger models demand a genuine fuel budget for serious offshore trips. Before buying used, have a marine surveyor check the transom and stringers carefully. Even well-built boats benefit from a thorough structural check after years offshore. Grady White shows that comfort and capability aren't opposites. But when the weather turns ugly 60 miles from the nearest inlet, comfort stops mattering, and only one thing does: whether your boat can actually get you home. That's exactly the scenario our number 3 boat was built to survive. Contender never set out to be a boat for casual weekend cruising. It started as a boat built exclusively for serious offshore fishermen who needed total confidence when the nearest shoreline was an hour away and closing. Vacuum-infused construction creates a stronger, more consistent hull layup than older hand-laid techniques, while a sharp deadrise is engineered specifically to cut through punishing offshore chop at speed. Experienced captains often describe the ride in genuinely rough conditions as class-leading, the kind of control that would feel unsafe in a less capable hull. This surprised even longtime offshore anglers who made the switch. Structural fatigue, the slow, quiet kind that shortens the life of less robust offshore boats, simply doesn't show up the same way on a well-maintained Contender, even after a decade of hard offshore abuse. But that capability comes with a real trade-off. Fuel efficiency takes a hit from the larger engines these boats typically carry, and maintenance runs above average given the specialized nature of the build. Dealer support is solid, though specialized components can occasionally take longer to source than mainstream parts. Before buying used, pay close attention to engine hours relative to the boat's age. A decade of hard offshore running wears very differently than a decade of occasional weekend trips. Contender earns its spot through pure offshore nerve. But the next boat proves that toughness isn't only measured in open water. Sometimes it's measured in 6 inches of it. In skinny water, 6 inches can be the difference between hooked up and completely stuck. That margin is exactly what our number 2 boat was built to respect, without ever compromising the structural integrity serious anglers refuse to give up. Hewes has earned an outstanding reputation among flats and shallow water anglers specifically because it never treats shallow as an excuse to build something flimsy. Composite materials and careful fiberglass layup techniques keep weight low while maintaining genuine rigidity, a balance fewer builders manage to strike successfully. Stringer systems are engineered specifically to resist the kind of flex that causes stress cracks in lesser-built, shallow water boats. Here's what most buyers don't expect walking in. Ride quality is a genuine strength, offering surprisingly capable performance in chop despite the boat's shallow draft, and stability while poling or staked out remains confident even in less than ideal conditions. Marine surveyors frequently point to something specific with this brand. Deck layouts, rod storage, and live-well placement all reflect direct input from experienced flats guides, not generic design assumptions made by a team that's never actually poled a flat at sunrise. Still, it's not the boat for everyone. Offshore ability is genuinely limited, since this hull simply isn't built for rough blue water. Parts for older models can occasionally take longer to source than mainstream offshore brands, and the specialized design appeals to a narrower audience by nature. Before buying used, have a surveyor check the transom and any spots where polling platforms or trolling motors have been mounted. Those mounting points are common places for water intrusion to quietly begin. Hewes proves precision matters as much as brute strength. But the boat waiting at number 1 has earned something that almost nothing else in recreational boating ever has. A reputation built over more than 60 years, tested by a demonstration most manufacturers still wouldn't dare attempt. Picture this. It's the early 1960s, and a boat builder makes a decision that seems almost reckless. They take one of their own boats, cut it clean in half with a saw, then run both halves separately on open water to prove a point about durability. It wasn't a marketing stunt that faded with time. It became the foundation of an engineering philosophy that's remained central to one brand for more than 6 decades. Owners of this boat have a phrase that comes up constantly at marinas. People still ask if the boat is new 15 years in. That's not an exaggeration. It's a common experience for owners of this brand. That boat is the Boston Whaler. The construction behind that demonstration sandwiches a foam core between layers of fiberglass, creating a structure that resists the flexing responsible for stress cracks in less rigid designs. Marine surveyors frequently cite the build quality as best in class, and it's genuinely common to find these boats still in active service after 30, even 40 years, sometimes owned by the very same family that bought them new. Here's the detail that explains why owners almost never sell. It's not just reliability. Though original engines routinely outlast expectations, usually only replaced because an owner wanted more power, not because anything failed. It's the accumulated trust of hundreds of trips without a single reason to look elsewhere. That kind of loyalty doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen quickly either. Resale value remains exceptionally strong even on boats decades old, and demand rarely softens regardless of broader market conditions. Buyers actively seek this brand out specifically because they know precisely what they're getting. Even the most trusted name on this list has honest trade-offs. The purchase price, both new and used, sits at a genuine premium compared to less established builders. Parts and factory service often carry a cost tied directly to the brand's reputation, and the heavier foam-filled construction means these boats aren't the most fuel-efficient option in their size class. Before buying used, always ask whether the hull has ever been checked for water intrusion. Foam-filled hulls resist catastrophic failure, but they can still absorb water through a puncture or a poorly sealed fitting, and a qualified surveyor can usually detect it with sound testing or a moisture meter in just a few minutes. So here's the biggest lesson from all 6 of these boats. Owners rarely regret a purchase when a boat delivers consistent reliability, honest build quality, and resale value that reflects genuine long-term trust instead of short-term hype. Every boat on this list has honest weaknesses. None of them are perfect. But each one has earned something more valuable than perfection. Decades of real-world proof from owners who would make the exact same choice again. If this breakdown helped you think differently about your next boat purchase, do us a favor and hit like, subscribe to HarborHook Boats, and turn on notifications so you never miss a future guide. And before you go, we want to hear from you. Out of these 6 boats, which one would you trust never to let you down? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one.